Hey everyone, my name is Teri with Marie Soapworks, and today I'm going to share with you my experience with the soap challenge. This month we learned the Ruffles technique. It was introduced to us by Whitney Schneider about a year ago in the abstract art soap challenge that was inspired by palette knife designs. So this month Whitney was our guest teacher and showed us how to do it. If you're not familiar with the soap challenge, it's hosted by Amy Warden, and I will leave information for Amy in the soap challenge and also for Whitney in the description below. This design is done by applying soap batter to pre-made soap. So it's a great technique to use if you have ugly soap that you want to cover up with a beautiful design. This technique resembles seashells or fans, or in my case, I thought it looked like leaves or like ginkgo biloba. Let me just start by saying this technique is much more difficult than it looks. The main thing is controlling your batter and letting it get to the right consistency. Every time I tried it, I always started off a little too early, and I will point out some of the differences, and you can see that the batter was just too wet when I tried it, and it definitely has a different look. So this is all about waiting till the batter is at that proper consistency. So let's get started with the first one. The first one I had in mind seashells, and I had in mind Monet's water lilies, or those colors, kind of the pretty cool colors. Here is the batter ready to go, but it has to thicken up quite a bit. So I have my ugly soaps ready, and I have a few different palette knives to try. By the time this got thickened to the proper consistency, or what I thought was the proper consistency, it was getting dark outside. So I don't have video of this, but I have a few photos that I want to go over with you to show you a bit of my learning process. Before we get too far, I want to let you know that I oven processed each one of these batches that I'm showing you here today. That involved putting them into a slab mold, covering them, and then I had preheated the oven to 170 degrees Fahrenheit, turned the oven off, put them in, and turned the oven light on, and then I turned that oven light off before I went to bed. Next morning, I take them out, and this is what I got. So let's go back to the first batch and show you what went wrong here. The main things I'm seeing here are that the batter is a bit muddled and that the striations aren't very clear and defined, and they're a bit sticky on some of these. These problems both indicate that the batter is not far enough along, it's not thick enough. Here's a photo of the wet soap the day of, and this is when I kind of started to get the hang of it. This one's the last one I did, and you can see the batter is setting up a little more, and boy, it's starting to click. I'm feeling a groove, and this batter thickness is just starting to get optimal. The problem is I was just done. I was losing the light, and I was getting so tired by this time, but really the batter was just now ready to really work for me. Here's a look at the bar after it's been oven processed. You can see it's lost its shine, and the colors stayed pretty true. It's a bit messy still, but it's my favorite one from my first try. Let's move on to the next one. For the second batch, I decided to turn from shells to ginkgo biloba leaves, and this is the consistency of the batter that I'm going to use, or just a little thicker than this, so you can see it's pretty thick. And I'm going to try to use syringes this time. You can get syringes like this at farm supply stores, or pharmacies give them out with their liquid medicine. I happen to have these from another soap challenge, so they came in handy for this one. For the rest of this video, since this takes quite a long time to do and a lot of trial and error, I sped up the video to 5 times as fast. For this very first leaf that I'm trying here on my second batch, it just didn't want to work. It just seemed like I couldn't get the right shape, but really this batter was just too wet. And so I would encourage you, if you're having trouble, just wait a little bit. And actually you can go over these as many times as you want, so you can just set this aside and try it again, and it will probably do much better once it's set up a little bit. Another thing you can do is wipe it off completely, but I've found that all you have to do is let it sit up, and you can go over it again and it comes out much better. I found out by the end of this process that if your soap has more of a matte finish than a glossy finish, it's going to work better for you. Just don't wait too long. You have to keep checking it, or it can get past the point you want because it just won't do anything and it's kind of just completely set up. I had that happen on my fourth batch. I don't show that here, but I had planned a fourth batch and it just wouldn't set up. It was taking forever, so I thought, well, maybe by morning it would be set up and to the proper consistency that I could still work it. But no, it was more like soap dough at that point, so that didn't work out for me to do a fourth batch. Okay, let's talk a little about the recipe. It didn't really matter what recipe I used, but in hindsight, I do wish I would have used a recipe that had a little higher percentage of saturated fats. I would pick a recipe that has a 50-50 ratio instead of like the 43-57 ratio that I use most of the time. I didn't use any fragrance in this. Of course, it's a very small amount you're putting on there, so the fragrance really doesn't matter. It will be the fragrance of whatever you used in the main part of the bar. But adding fragrance could cause the batter to accelerate more quickly than I want it to, and it also could change the color a bit, and I wanted very vibrant colors here, so I elected not to use fragrance for these tops. But I did add kaolin clay at 1 teaspoon per pound of oils, and I always do that when I'm doing a layer soap or I'm doing a soap that I want to set up more quickly. Really, I try to add it wherever I can though, because I love the feel of kaolin clay in a cured bar of soap. Kaolin clay is one of my favorite additives. Continuing with the recipe, let's talk about the amounts. I only used 1 ounce per each one of these colors, 1 ounce of oil, so that's how I figured my math. I could have used less, probably could have used a 1/2 ounce, but the hard thing is you can't really stick blend when you're dealing with such a small amount, so I used my mini mixer and it doesn't do as good of a job, so that's another reason why it took forever to set up. I had a lot of leftover soap, but my leftover soap is gorgeous. It has such vibrant colors, so it will make an awesome confetti soap, so I'm looking forward to doing something with this leftover batter. One thing I learned from this batch is I need to figure out a better way of applying the soap. It's difficult to apply soap in an arc shape and get it to be even and get it to radiate around that pivot point. I tried a few things. One of them was to put the colors on wax paper with the syringes and then to kind of smear the colors with the palette knife to get a nice gradation. And then I loaded the palette knife with the colors and I made my arc. But as you can see, the top colors kind of trailed off, and that's because of the shape of the palette knife. That little tip doesn't hold as much color as the other part, so naturally it uses up the color more quickly. In the future, if I was trying this technique, I would make the shape just how I want it right on the bar using the syringes. That way you can get each of your colors more uniform instead of having any trailing off as I did. The green that you see is kind of an olivey green. That's the middle green you see there in the syringe. That turns out to be a really gorgeous color of green. It's a yellow green. It's actually my favorite color. I have been searching for a way to get that green, and you can't usually get it by just using straight color. So I've always had to mix, and I'm always trying different combinations, and I finally think I've got it. It seems that most colors have a quirk about them that makes them a little challenging for one reason or another. One quirk with the green micas is they often morph, but then they come back. One quirk with, say, the oranges, a lot of times they thicken up more than the other ones. Like this syringe right here with the orange, I couldn't hardly push it out because it just thickens up faster than many of the other colors. Also, oranges tend to be very unpredictable with heat, and when they're heated up too much, they tend to be peach instead of orange. Yellows are hard to get. Yellows seem like they don't like to be gelled, and also you have to use a pretty high usage rate. Now let's talk about the palette knife itself. This palette knife was one I used in college for my oil painting classes, and I haven't been able to find a better one, and I'm sorry I don't have any information on what this is, but I can recommend that you look for the thinnest possible palette knife, the most flexible palette knife you can find. This one is steel, so it does rust, so I have to be careful when I'm washing it that I dry it off right away, but all the ones I can find now are stainless steel. I don't know if stainless steel makes it less flexible. You may know that. If you know, please just drop it in the comments below if you know the difference, if stainless steel is less flexible than regular steel. Another thing that I learned as I experimented with this Ruffle technique was that when I grab my bar by my left hand, I need to wind it around the bar, and when I first grab it as far as I can to the right before I start to pivot the bar, because I often ran out of room to wind it to the left. So take your non-dominant hand and wind that around the bar as far as you can and grab it, and then when you're turning it to the other direction, you'll have more room and you'll be able to make a bigger arc. If you're wondering what the pointy tool that I was using is called, it's called a needle tool or a detail tool, and it's used in ceramics. The name of the other tool I'm using is called a stylus, and it's used for embossing. It has a little tiny ball on each end, and they're both different sizes, and then you can buy ones that are bigger or smaller, and they are usually used for dry embossing, and so you can get that raised surface on paper by tracing around a stencil. I often use them for detailed bits of soap making. I really fell in love with the colors here, but I felt like the shapes weren't right. Also, I felt like it was too much orange for an actual ginkgo below a leaf. I loved how these turned out, but I wanted to try to make more of a true shape and true colors. So for my next try at this, I decided not to use the orange. If you enjoy this kind of content and you would like to see more like this, please give this video a like and leave a comment, and make sure you're subscribed so you can catch the next video. I'm going to leave you with some of the remainder of the second batch and then on to the third batch. For the third batch, just keep in mind that the colors are morphed at the moment. They're looking rather drab, but they will perk back up once the saponification is done. Thank you so much for sticking it out to the end of the video. Please check out the description for information that I've mentioned in this video, and also for my website and my Facebook group. And give this a try. It's quite fun. Just allow yourself plenty of time and have a great day, and I will see you back here next time.